election today. After we hear the report from the nominating committee, we'll hear from each of the recommended candidates and then move forward with selecting a nominee. With that, we will go ahead with hearing the report of the nominating committee. I will now recognize nominating committee chair DeBose Porter to deliver the report of the nominating committee. DeBose, if you are ready. Chairman DeBose, if you are able to hear me, if you are ready to, I believe you are muted, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Justin. This was a tough challenge to be asked to do, but we had wonderful task force committee members. It was made up of myself, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, Jason Carter, Stacey Abrams, LaWanna Hurd Tucker, John Jackson, and Glenn Paul Friedman. I want to give a particular thanks to Sachin Varghese, our legal counsel, to Candace Washington with the party, and to Scott Hogan. Everyone understands the law of what the challenge is. It's not a choice. We cannot let this go to a Republican seat. So to be able to do that, we must have a name submitted by 4 o'clock today to the Secretary of State's office to avoid any ambiguity in the law. To do that, we opened this process. We had actually, it was 132 applicants. It was a robust discussion. We fully considered all names and applications. We discussed all the candidates. We came to a consensus on the recommendations. And I want to make clear, this only applies to the nominee for the general election. The governor will have to call a special election for the unexpired term. So of that, our report recommends to the executive committee in alphabetical order: Park Cannon, Andre Dickens, Robert Franklin, Nikema Williams, James Woodall. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Chairman DeBose. Does any executive committee member have questions for Chairman DeBose? Hearing none, I would like to say a special thank you to the 7 individuals that comprise the nominating committee, coming together as a group with less than 24 hours notice and reviewing 131 applicants. That's no small feat. So again, thank you for your all service to the party.
Thank you.
I would like to call for a motion to consider the recommendations of the nominating committee.
So moved.
Second.
I have Sarah Todd, and I apologize. Who seconded?
Johnson.
Thank you. Hearing a motion with a proper second, all those in favor of approving the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, please signify by saying nay. And I have Nikema's abstention. Any other abstentions? Okay, moving on to the next part of our agenda. So each nominee will now have, looks like I got muted. Each nominee will have 5 minutes to address the executive committee. I gotta go back to my tab. During these 5 minutes, they will have the opportunity to discuss why they should be chosen as the Democratic Party's nominee for the 5th Congressional District, and we will go in alphabetical order by last name. That means that Park Cannon, you are going to be going first. You have up to 5 minutes to address the executive committee.
Thank you to everyone and to the sitting members of the Democratic Party of Georgia, to the sitting members of Congress. I want to thank you in English. En español, quiero decir gracias a ti. En portugués, quiero falar obrigada. I am prepared for this task and for this job because I have been prepared by the best, by teachers, activists, and many of you on this call, and as well as Congressman John Lewis. The same way that we understand the importance of what is happening today, so does the public. And I present myself to you to be the person that it retains the public trust and increases our ability to turn out in November. It is fitting that I would present first, as I would become the first openly queer member of Congress and the first openly queer woman. As we look at the 5th District and the possibilities that lie ahead with the appointment to the November ballot, as well as the responsibility in preserving and honoring the legacy of the late Congressman John Lewis, I contend to you that there is no other candidate that is more representative of the people that make up this diverse district. There is no one more prepared to serve the district immediately without conflict of interest, nor any other candidate with the proven legislative record that I have in serving a significant portion of this very district. The work that I have done while serving the people of House District 58 in congruence with the work of Congressman John Lewis starts with healthcare. As he was a champion for Medicaid for all, I too launched the comparable battle for Medicaid expansion in Georgia. And we had a successful battle because we actually got Medicaid expansion for pregnant families just starting July 1st. Having passed 5 successful pieces of legislation while serving from the minority party is no small feat, especially under 2 different Republican governors. This is a testament to the work I will bring to DC immediately on behalf of the Congressional 5th District and the state of Georgia. While I am extremely progressive and representative of the demographic that make up the 5th District, my ability to work across party lines to get the work done on behalf of our state is something that I am incredibly proud of. In lockstep with others across the aisle and others in Congress, I have passed legislation that allowed for Black Lives Matter to be commended at the state level, brought the hate crimes bill to the floor. I've introduced over 100 progressive measures on whole women's health and pregnant workers' fairness. I have passed 2 state affordable housing referendums for nonprofit providers to have tax relief. I have spearheaded the Department of Public Health's rule change on HIV testing and notification protocol. All of that doesn't even speak to the activism work. As many of you know, when I started activating this district from organizing, it was in Clayton County. We were working on MARTA. We then moved to Decatur and DeKalb to ensure that they had a good representative for their elected seats. I live in the 5th Congressional District in the Edgewood area, blocks from where Dr. King is buried today, and that is where I worship. I continue to teach in the eastern part of this district in Decatur. I as well am a health advocate in Brookhaven. My family lives in South Fulton. And as you can see, my investment in District 5 is unmatched. As I close out, I want to make clear, there have been 74 years since this district has been represented by a woman. Let's not make it 75. Let's make sure we increase the turnout of all of our constituents by putting a qualified woman with proven stances to defend our rights that are at stake in the Congress. Let us present Georgia's first millennial progressive representative to the 5th Congressional District and have our progressive impact our democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Cannon. Next speaker will be Andre Dickens, who has up to 5 minutes to address the executive committee.
Great, good afternoon, and thank you all for your leadership and your commitment to the Democratic Party and to this state. If you are like me, you are still mourning the loss of Congressman Lewis. This makes this meeting all the more difficult at this time because all I really want to do is to continue to do what I've been doing for the last 48 hours, which is talking about Congressman Lewis. Nonetheless, I am deeply humbled by this opportunity, and I want to serve my party and serve my country. Let me state off the bat that my preference would be that we would have an election, that we could stand before the people and that they could participate. But I understand that this process is as it is right now. And so that, therefore, last night, around 6:30, I was working on my application and put it in, and it was literally 1 week to the day from when I sat at the bedside of Congressman Lewis. And I told him that I loved him, and I told him that I know that God has his hand on him. And he called me brother, and he said, keep up the fight. And that made me feel very special. Now, of course, I'm aware that he tells all of you the very same thing. He calls all of you brother, he calls all of you sister, but it still didn't make me feel any less special. So this is all a dream to me. I'm a 5th generation Atlantan, but I'm still a 1st generation college student when I attended Georgia Tech. I grew up in the working class part of Atlanta, and I attended Atlanta Public Schools. And from the time I was an engineering student at Georgia Tech, I have been serving the public, whether that was SGA all the way to now at City Council. I have been working on behalf of the people of Atlanta to push a progressive agenda of inclusion, equity, and data-driven policy. I have actually mirrored my work after the 5th Congressional District. That has been the most progressive district of the South for almost 5 decades when you go back with Democrats like Weltner and then Andy Young and then, of course, Congressman Lewis. So in just 6 years on City Council, I have focused my efforts around the critical policy areas of affordable housing, transportation, opportunity for workers, and equity and access. And that all lines with the DPG's big policies and their goals and their platform. I have passed laws. I pass laws at City Council. I know how to tackle big policies. I conduct research, I gain support, and I win the vote. I pass major laws on behalf of the citizens of Atlanta. Now, some people may think that because most of the City Council of Atlanta are all similarly situated, that we may vote the same way and we may feel the same way. Not the case. You have to earn those votes. You have to work on policy. You have to think about it. You have to gain support. And you have to be about the business of the people. So I'll name a few of the laws that I've passed in these 2 terms on City Council. And the second term I was voted on unanimously, unopposed, and I had the highest votes of anyone on the ballot that year, the last election. So I authored and passed legislation that established a $15 an hour minimum wage for city employees. That's the first of its kind. The state doesn't even do that right now. And so we have a $15 minimum wage in Atlanta because I asked for that policy and had to work my tail off to get it passed. We also, as part of the party platform, is great paying jobs. Well, I started a program at my nonprofit TechBridge that we have a technology career program that trains people to get high demand skills in technology so that they can get middle income to upper income jobs. And we are training people and taking them from survival to success, and they're getting jobs around $56,000 on average when most of them were unemployed. As Secretary of the Board of Directors for Invest Atlanta, I have fostered $3.3 billion in capital to move or expand headquarters into Atlanta, so commerce for good paying jobs. Also fight for economic fairness and against inequality as part of the program for DPG. And I've authored the passage of the first inclusionary zoning policy in the state of Georgia, where in 2018, we now require 10 to 15% of the units developed around the Beltline and around the stadium neighborhoods for them to be set aside for working families for workforce housing. We've had in the ground or already erected 1,000 units. Is that my time? Is that my time?
Yes, sir. That is your time.
All right. Thank you all.
Our next speaker will be Robert Franklin, who has up to 5 minutes to address the executive committee.
Thank you a great deal for this extraordinary moment and opportunity to all members of this executive committee. I'm Robert Franklin, President Emeritus of Morehouse College and over 30-year resident of the 5th District. Perhaps all of you have seen the Broadway musical Hamilton. There's an extraordinary line that rings in my ear even now, that history has its eye on you. And I think that's the case with each and every one of you serving on this committee today. History has its eye on you. How do you follow the extraordinary legacy and the impact of Congressman John Robert Lewis? I also want to say a special word of appreciation for the leadership of Park and Andre, of Nekima and James, for all they've been doing. I have enormous admiration for each of them. So you can't make a bad decision today. I'm so happy to have this extraordinary leadership. We are all sons and daughters of John Lewis. And so whatever you decide, it will say to the world and history that has its eye on you, Atlanta has leadership. Georgia has leadership. Speaking of history, Martin Luther King once said, "This hour in history needs a dedicated circle of transformed nonconformists. Saving our world from pending doom will come not from the action of an adjusted majority, but from the creative maladjustment of a transformed minority." And so it's that notion of the opportunity we have as transformed nonconformists to do what history needs doing right now. We have to heal the racial divide in our city. I have a track record of providing leadership in that area, particularly with respect to the Atlanta Black Jewish Coalition that Congressman Lewis invested so much in. The world has watched Atlanta burn and seethe and struggle with intergroup conflict, but also with the lack of opportunity. And so my first day would be spent reviewing the legislative agenda of Congressman Lewis. I've worked with his staff and have enormous respect for Michael Collins and all of the team over the years to focus on, at this moment, what we can do to ensure that Congressman Lewis's wishes go forward in a strong way. Focus on protecting voting rights, as Stacey Abrams has delineated in so many ways. To focus on workforce development and job training for young people in those communities. I still see the burning Wendy's in my mind, which reminds me, unless there's opportunity, unless there's hope, unless there's a sense of wanting to live another day in this city, many people will act on their fatalism and despair. And so we must provide those jobs. We can do that now in the legacy aura of John Robert Lewis. I would also suggest that on day one, I can begin the work that John has done so much over the years of helping to educate the nation on our possibilities for becoming a better people. Alexis de Tocqueville in the 19th century said, "The greatness of America lies not in that she's more enlightened than any other nation, but lies in her ability to repair her faults." That's going to be the work going forward. We can start it now together. We can make a unity statement at the end of this day to history and to the world that is watching. And because of my unique role, not occupying an office currently, there would be no need to fill other offices or create a domino effect of vacancies. I'm prepared to serve for as little or as long as this committee would suggest. I am flexible. And my final word to you is to remember that wonderful adage, "Blessed are the flexible, for they will never be bent out of shape." Thank you.
Excuse me, thank you. Our next speaker will be Nekima Williams, who has up to 5 minutes to address the executive committee.
Thank you. Members of the Executive Committee, my friends, my colleagues, my co-conspirators for justice, I'm honored to speak before you today. I, like many of you, am still grieving from the loss of a true American hero. It's surreal that we're forced to endure this nominating process while still grieving. For me, Congressman Lewis was a personal hero, friend, and mentor. My entire political life, I've considered myself a student of the John Lewis School of Politics. I studied Congressman Lewis's work closely and practiced the art of getting into good trouble. I learned from Congressman Lewis how to speak up and speak out for my constituents. He showed me the value of putting myself, sometimes physically, in between the dangerous policies that the most vulnerable communities are hurt by. Nobody could possibly fill the shoes of Congressman Lewis. His leadership and fighting spirit is needed now more than ever in this country. I believe it is imperative that we choose someone with a long track record of fearlessly standing up for what is right, and someone who will take on the endless attacks on our rights that we've grown accustomed to seeing from the Republican Party. We need someone who is not afraid to put themselves on the line for their constituents in the same way that Congressman Lewis taught us to. And I would be honored if you chose me to be that person. My fight began in rural Alabama. I didn't grow up in Atlanta. I grew up in Alabama, where I rode around in my neighborhood on the back of my grandpa's pickup truck, and we dropped off slate cards so that our neighbors knew who to vote for. Little did I know the impact that this community outreach and my family's values around the importance of voting would have in my life. I grew up reading textbooks that spoke about my great aunt, Autherine Lucy, as she became the first Black student admitted to the University of Alabama. And this ingrained into me a sense of standing up to injustice and demanding equal and fair treatment. In high school, I was a proud union member of UFCW as I worked as a cashier at Food World. And then I went on to Talladega College and HBCU in Alabama, where I earned my bachelor's degree and joined Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Like so many others, I moved to Atlanta looking for an opportunity to grow. I'm happy to say that I found it. I was hired by Fulton County Schools working as a special needs educator, a job that taught me so much about the school system and continues to guide my decisions today. And then I went to work for Planned Parenthood Southeast, fighting to ensure women throughout the Southeast did not have their right to choose stolen from them. I stood up against some of the ugliest abortion bans we've seen in decades on behalf of women throughout Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, and we won many of those fights. Currently, I work for the National Domestic Workers Alliance and Care in Action, fighting to protect the rights of our domestic workers throughout the country as they face increasing attacks from the extreme right as workers are continuously under attack. In 2017, I ran for State Senate District 39, where I've repeatedly stood up on behalf of my constituents. I fearlessly spoke up against the unconstitutional Republican abortion ban, fought against school vouchers, sponsored bills to protect voting rights, and supported legislation to eradicate race-based hair discrimination. I've been a fearless advocate for fair and transparent redistricting, affordable and accessible healthcare, and have spoken up against regressive policies like RFRA. On November 13th, 2018, the lessons of getting into good trouble became more real than ever. I was standing with my constituents, speaking out and demanding that every vote be counted after this disastrous 2018 election, when state troopers rushed protesters in the Capitol and arrested several of us demonstrating. I was taken out of the Capitol, where I serve as a senator, with zip ties on my hands to the Fulton County Jail for simply standing with my constituents to speak out in the wake of the election. Last year, I launched my bid to become the first Black woman ever to chair the Democratic Party of Georgia after 17 years of being involved at every level of leadership in this party, starting with the Young Democrats in my county party and including the executive committee of the Democratic National Committee. We've made great strides, and I'm proud of the position Georgia Democrats are in to win in November under my leadership. It's a badge of honor to live in Georgia's 5th District and to already represent over 100,000 residents in the district in my role as state senator. It would be the honor of my life to serve as the voice of the 5th Congressional District. I have a long career in activism, advocacy, and policy to serve as a strong fighter for our communities and values nationally. I believe my experiences, accomplishments, and proven record of fighting for my constituents and party values make me the ideal candidate for this seat. I hope that my body of work has earned your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker will be James Major Woodall, who has up to 5 minutes to address the executive committee.
Thank you and good afternoon. We find ourselves in quite a perilous time. Not only do we mourn the loss of a now departed ancestor, but also a living legend. And his spirit lives on within each and every one of us. And what we have the opportunity to do is to not only just simply replace a seat, but often give voice, give spirit, give power to the very people that Congressman Lewis fought so diligently for so many years. So when we look at this race, we look at this opportunity, like me, Congressman Lewis got his start at an early age as an activist and community organizer, and he was told to wait his turn. But what he found was that the very righteous indignation of a people who were determined to rise was enough to push him and his people and his community, but most importantly, this nation, forward toward freedom. And so by choosing me, you would not just be supporting me as an individual. You will be lifting up the voices of so many young people and elders alike to be able to declare that justice can and should and will roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. As the next congressman, I plan to work directly with the congressional delegation to pass House Resolution 1, as well as the Voting Rights Restoration Act that's named after John Lewis, to demand that the current members of Congress who are signed onto the Arizona amicus brief that is trying to gut Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act remove their names, to support bills and legislation like the Green New Deal, that people in Doraville and Buford Highway, which is home to many of the immigrants there in that community, being exposed to insurmountable levels of pollution, but also are simply struggling due to lack of jobs and economic opportunity. That legislation can move to protect the most vulnerable by protecting their health, protecting the environment, and opening up processes to clean energy jobs. And then we have a reality that the 5th congressional district is not just affecting Atlanta. We have an entire state that is in need of somebody to declare what is right. And John Lewis did just that. And we must continue in that spirit to be bold and tell the world, tell the nation, tell anybody who stands in the way of the people that we will overcome. And in closing, I will lift up this. I'm simply a prisoner of hope. My resume, you have that. But what I want you all to hear from me today is the same words that John Lewis spoke so eloquently so many times. That I do believe in the promise of freedom. I do believe in the project and the promise of America. And most importantly, I do believe in our people. Because when we stand together, we win. And when we realize that we are stronger together than ever apart, we can do this. We can make America a better nation. So thank you. I hope to get your support in this nomination. And I look forward to serving and continuing to lead our people toward freedom. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of our speaking time. At this point, I will now call for a motion for us to enter executive session. Inside of executive session, everyone who is not a DPG executive committee member or designated staffer will be removed from the call, and executive committee will discuss and vote on the nominees.
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, I have Jimmy Glenn and moving and Christopher Johnson seconding.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Hearing a motion and a second, all those in favor of the motion, please signify. I'm sorry?
Mr. Holzenbeck, could we have some discussion of that motion, please?
Yes, sir.
This is David Worley. I'm a former chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia. I do not believe it is appropriate to have this discussion of the candidates in executive session. While it's true that this is a job application process, the rules of the Democratic National Committee and the rules of the Democratic Party of Georgia require that our meetings be held in public. And if this meeting were being held in person, the discussion would all be held in public. I think it's not appropriate to have the discussion of the candidates in a closed session. And I would urge the members of the executive committee to vote against this motion.
In response, and I will defer also to DPG counsel, but in response, as you mentioned during your remarks, we put forward, or I moved for this motion because we are viewing this as a personnel matter to allow for open and frank conversation on the background of the candidates ahead of the vote. And again, the vote is a matter of public record on the back end on how each individual executive committee member has voted on the nominees. Counsel, do you have anything to add to my answer?
I have nothing additional. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Sorry. Justin, I
Ms.
would
Davis?
I would just like to add that former Chairman Worley, I think about how our actions, if we were in a traditional meeting, would still be conducted in view of the public. I know there's nothing I will say in a closed session that I wouldn't say in the public, in front of the media. So I will be voting no on this motion.
Mr. Chair, if I could also just add one further point.
Yes, sir.
Congressman Lewis, more than anyone in public life, was concerned about fair, open voting processes. I'm honored that I can say that Congressman Lewis was a friend for the last 34 years. I think the best way to honor his memory is obviously to pick someone who can carry on in his footsteps, but also someone or use a process that is completely fair, open, and transparent. I think our party, under the circumstances, has done a wonderful job over the last weekend to make sure that we have an open and fair and transparent process. And I think the way to continue that is to have our discussions completely in the public view. Thank you.
I see Jimmy Glenn's hand raised. I recognize.
I'd like to withdraw my motion at this time.
So the motion for entering executive session has been withdrawn. Would anyone else would still entertain a motion if someone else would like to move?
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session.
A second motion.
And that is Ms. Harrell and Mr. Johnson. Is there any discussion on this new motion? Hearing no discussion. So again, the motion is to enter into executive session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 I'll allow for those that voted to remute themselves. Those who are opposed to the motion, please signify by saying nay.
No.
Nay.
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 It is hard to do this over a Zoom call, but it is my opinion that the ayes do carry the motion.
Mr. Chair, I call for a recorded vote.
The motion for a recorded vote has been.
Scout Smith seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like I was muted. A motion from the floor for a roll call vote has been made. Council, that is a motion that has to be then acted upon, correct?
Yes.
All right. For this, I will go down the roll of the executive committee. Again, the motion on the floor is to enter into executive session. If you are voting in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. I will be recording your vote as we go along, so please just bear with me as I go through. Nikema Williams.
Stain.
Ted Terry.
Aye.
Sarah Todd,
Aye.
This is for Nikki.
Adrian White,
Nay.
B. Wynn.
No.
I vote yes. Jason Estevez,
Nay.
Calvin Smyre, Smyre, Wendy Davis, Wendy Davis, Richard Ray, Richard Ray, Mr. Richard, I believe you're unmuted now.
Aye.
Thank you. Sally Rosser,
Nay.
Pamela Stevenson, Pamela Stevenson, Sheik Rahman,
Yes.
Dan Halpern,
No.
Lisa Ring,
Nay.
Bobby Fuse, Bobby Fuse, again, I ask if you are not actively voting, please be sure to have your microphone muted. That way we can hear. Bobby Fuse, I believe you're on the call. How do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Jimmy Glenn,
Nay.
Ryan Barrett,
Nay.
TJ Copeland,
Aye.
Ben Myers,
Aye.
Cheryl Williams, Cheryl Williams, Tanika Miller,
Nay.
June Chris, June, I can see you. I think you're attempting to talk, but your microphone is muted. June, how do you vote? Moving on, Norman Garrett.
Abstain. I abstain.
Thank you. Norman Garrett.
Nay.
Sherry Giardino.
No.
Chris Johnson.
Yes.
Maisha Good.
No.
Tim Shiflett.
Aye.
It doesn't matter to me either way.
I caution someone I believe is unmuted. Diane Evans.
Yes.
Carlotta Harrell.
Yes.
Thank you. Rachel Polly.
No.
Hattie Dorsey. Hattie Dorsey. I'm sorry, I'm seeing that Cheryl Williams voted aye. Thank you. James Beverly.
No.
Gloria Butler.
No.
Scout Smith.
Aye.
Thank you. Dominic Perkins.
Yes.
And I'm seeing that Ms. Davis lost connection, but she does vote no. Going back to the list, Larry Schlesinger.
No.
David Worley.
No.
Sandra Williams.
Aye.
James Williams.
Aye.
Mary Lou Waymer.
Aye.
Congressman Bishop. Congressman Bishop? Congressman Johnson?
No.
And I'm sorry, that was for Congressman Johnson or for Congressman Bishop?
Congressman Johnson votes no.
Thank you, sir. Congressman Scott? Congressman Scott? And then Congresswoman McBath. Congresswoman McBath? Council, please correct me if I am incorrect, but this motion requires a simple majority, yes?
I vote no.
Calvin Smyre, thank you, sir.
Yes, I'm having issues.
No problem.
That's correct, Justin.
All right, I'm counting votes now. Just give me 1 second, please. So I count 21 votes for nay with a total of 40 votes cast. That means that the motion does fail. So we will stay outside of executive session for the next part of the agenda. Go back to our agenda. So moving forward, 1 second, please. At this time, I would like to recognize DPG Counsel Sachin Borghese to read the rules of consideration that we would like to propose to keep this discussion orderly due to the nature of this meeting.
Good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate everything that everyone on this call has done to get us to this point in the process. Just want to propose some rules of consideration for us to adopt in order to consider these individuals in a timely manner, given our time deadline. I believe I am sharing my screen.
You are.
Can you see the document?
We can.
Okay, great. So what I would propose is that we allow 5 speakers for each individual candidate, up to 3 executive committee members in favor, up to 2 against, with each speaker having no more than 3 minutes to speak, and with each executive committee member having only 1 opportunity to speak amongst all the candidates. If we stick to this format, we will get through the discussion in an hour and 15 minutes. I would then propose, because we have 5 candidates, that we take 2 non-binding roll call polls on the nominees. One, the first, if a candidate clears 50%, I would propose that we then entertain a motion to choose that person as the nominee. If no candidate on the first poll reaches 50%, I would recommend that the 2 highest vote getters on the first poll, that we vote on them again in a separate poll, and that the highest vote getter among those 2, that we should entertain a motion to nominate that individual. Will someone move to adopt these rules of consideration? So moved.
I have a question.
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have a motion from Larry Schlesinger and a second from who, I'm sorry?
Senator Butler?
Scott Smith.
And then we had questions and discussion. So I would like to open the floor to discussion. Who would like to propose a question?
I have a question.
Ms. Harrell, you're recognized.
What, I mean, he said it's going to take an hour and a half for us to do this. We've heard the candidates speak. Can we just not vote? I'm trying to understand why we're prolonging it. Why can't we just vote for the candidates?
Council, if you'd like to take this. I believe council is having issues with his internet. Sachin, can you hear me?
Yes, what was the question?
Miss Harrell, correct me if I misspeak, but her question is, since we have already heard from the candidates, with your proposed guidelines, this could take up to an hour and a half. Is there anything limiting us from going ahead and voting, or would your rules require us to have converse or debate first?
So it is a maximum of an hour and 15 minutes. Certainly, if individuals don't wish to speak in favor or against any of the nominees, that would be truncated. Certainly, the executive committee could choose to adopt the rules of consideration without discussion of the candidates, which would lead directly into the first roll call poll vote on the 5 candidates as set forth.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I have a question.
I can't see who that is, but you are recognized.
Wendy Davis, sorry. The rules of consideration seem to be expecting that we would be in executive session, which we're not. So that, to me, is a bit confusing. Why we would adopt a rule that isn't relevant at this point.
Council, did you hear Ms. Davis's question?
I did. I'm not sure I've followed though.
Well, if the point of having the non-binding vote is to help us decide when to leave executive session, but we don't have a need to leave executive session, it just seems unusual to adopt that as a rule.
Sure, and it's not for the purpose of leaving executive session. It's for the purpose of identifying which of the 5 candidates the executive committee would like to make the nominee. And so we could certainly, if the executive committee wanted to, move for a vote on the nominees, and assuming that an individual cleared 50%, we could then move to have that individual be the nominee. Separately, any member of the executive committee could move for a vote on a particular nominee, and we could have that vote. So there are certainly multiple ways this can be done, and this is just one proposal.
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, hold on one second, Mr. Johnson. I see your motion, or see you recognizing, but you are not, if you are not actively speaking, to please make sure that your line is muted. I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, but I did see B. Wynn with her hand raised before you spoke.
Thank you, Justin. I just had a question about the rules of consideration and how they were developed, and if this is just typical protocol for a circumstance such as this, and if there was any consideration for alternatives like ranked choice voting.
This is just a proposal.
I would like to next recognize Christopher Johnson.
Hear me? I'd like to move that we proceed with the election without further discussion.
I second the motion.
Council, if a motion to close debate or discussion, does that get acted upon immediately, or do we conclude discussion first?
So there's a pending motion on the floor. Someone can move to close discussion, assuming that receives support. You can vote down the pending motion, or the individual who made the pending motion can withdraw it, and then the floor will be open for a subsequent motion.
But the motion, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Johnson, but I believe the motion is to end debate on the current motion, which is to adopt the rules of consideration.
It's to not adopt the rules of consideration, but rather to move to vote without further discussion.
I believe that motion would be out of order, since we do have a duly made and seconded motion to adopt the rules of consideration. But again, I do defer to council.
you'll need to close the motion on the floor either by the individual who made it withdrawing or by having a vote on it and seeing whether it carries or fails.
Thank you. Moving on for the list of hands that I saw in order, I'd like to next recognize Jimmy Glenn.
I'd like to offer an amendment to the rules of consideration. I think we should move forward with a non-binding roll call first to see where we are. Because if we have over 50% of the executive committee who agrees on the nomination of a single candidate, I don't see the purpose of having an hour and 15 minutes set aside for discussion if we already have reached a majority consensus. So I'd like to see that first, and then if we have not reached the 50% threshold, then we move forward with that discussion per candidate, and then move forward with the 2 or possibly 3 binding, non-binding roll calls.
Mr. Schlesinger, I have it noted that you were the one that made the motion to adopt the rules of consideration.
Right, and I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you. So that would withdraw the motion to, if correct me if I am mistaken, Mr. Schlesinger or Mr. Glenn, but correct me if I'm wrong, that would pull the motion of accepting the rules of consideration from the floor.
It was just an amendment to the rules of consideration, which are being discussed right now. So I think we would have to, I mean, council will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we would have to vote on the amendment and then, unless my amendment was out of order.
So the amendment has been accepted by the individual that moved the motion. So the motion is now amended, and Mr. Schlesinger, feel free to correct me if I'm misstating the motion as amended, but I believe the motion as amended is now to move forward with the proposed roll call polls to determine if any candidate has over 50% support among the executive committee, and then to do that process before entertaining further discussion.
That's my understanding too.
Call for the question.
Mr. Myers has moved to call the question. I have a few more members that have asked to be recognized. Council, calling up the question, does that close debate and that motion has to be voted on immediately?
That motion needs to be voted on.
So the calling of the question has been moved by Mr. Myers. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
I have Mr. Johnson, so Ben Myers and Mr. Johnson. So all those in favor, and again, the motion on the floor that you are voting on is to end discussion on the motion of the acceptance of the rules of consideration. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
And before I do move on to the nays, please go ahead and mute your phone if you've already voted.
I'm making an awful lot of noise.
Thank you. All those against the motion, please signify by saying nay.
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 It is the opinion of the chair that the ayes have it, and therefore the motion discussion is closed.
Can I move for a roll call vote on that?
You can. So let me pull up my handy dandy spreadsheet. So again, I'm going to go down the roll call. If you, whenever it is your turn, please unmute and vote. And again, the motion.
Point of order. Point of order. There was no second on that motion.
For the roll call?
Yes, there was no second for that motion.
I'll second the motion.
And I'm sorry, who was that seconded?
This is B. I'll second the motion for a roll call.
Thank you. So we will now go through a roll call vote. And again, what you are voting on is to close discussion on the acceptance or the motion, which is acceptance of the rules of consideration? I will now commence with roll call. Please signify your vote when it is your turn by saying yes, no, or abstain, or any version of those words. Nikema Williams?
Abstain.
Thank you. Ted Terry?
Abstain.
Sarah Todd?
Abstain.
Adrian White?
Aye.
B. Wynn?
Aye.
I vote yes. Jason Estevez?
No.
Calvin Smyre? Calvin Smyre? Wendy Davis?
No.
Richard Ray?
Yes.
Sally Rosser?
No.
Pamela Stevenson?
What are they voting? No. I don't get it.
Pamela Stevenson?
Did you put it back on mute?
Sheik Rahman?
Yes.
Thank you. Dan Halpern?
Yes.
Lisa Ring?
Yes.
Bobby Fuse?
Yes.
Jimmy Glenn?
Yes.
Ryan Barrett?
Yes.
TJ Copeland?
Yes.
Ben Myers?
Yes.
Cheryl Williams? Cheryl Williams? Fanika Miller?
Yes.
June Chris?
Yes.
Norman Garrett?
Yes.
Sherry Giordino? I'm sorry, did you say yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris Johnson?
Yes.
Maisha Good?
Yes.
Tim Shiflett?
Yes.
Diane Evans?
Yes.
Carlotta Harrell?
Yes.
Rachel Pauley?
No.
Hattie Dorsey? Hattie Dorsey? James Beverly?
Mr. Chair, could you restate the motion, please?
Yes, sir. The motion that we are doing a roll call vote is to end debate on the motion of accepting of the rules of consideration as amended by, like 3 motions old. Hold on. Jimmy Glenn?
It's not amended.
No.
No for James Beverly. Gloria Butler?
No.
Thank you. Scout Smith?
Yes.
Dominic Perkins?
Yes.
Larry Schlesinger?
Yes.
David Worley?
Yes.
Sandra Williams? Sandra Williams? James Williams?
Yes.
Mary Lou Waymer?
Yes.
Congressman Bishop?
We didn't amend that.
Congressman Bishop? Congressman Johnson?
No.
Thank you. Congresswoman McBath? Congresswoman McBath? And Congressman Scott?
Congressman Bishop, yes.
Thank you. That leaves Congressman Scott or Congresswoman McBath. Okay, let me count the votes. Council, a motion to close debate is a simple majority, correct?
That's correct.
470.
On this motion, I received 28 votes in the affirmative with 38 votes cast. So that means that the motion to close debate does carry. Council, can we? I'm sorry.
Justin, sorry. My vote is actually no. It was moving pretty quickly, so my vote was actually a no, not a yes.
I corrected that. That does not.
Okay.
That would bring
Oh,
us.
I know that. Yeah, but I would like it to reflect.
Yes, ma'am. Council, can we quickly edit the rules of consideration to reflect that we will be doing a non-binding poll before any discussion begins? And Jimmy Glenn or Larry Schlesinger, please tell me if the rules of consideration are not reflective of your amended motion.
My amendment was just to add the first non-binding vote before discussion, not to remove the discussion outright, only in the case that we do not reach a 50%.
Gotcha. Thank you. And I'm seeing questions from the floor. As of right now, we are waiting for the motion to be the rules to be amended, at which point we must vote on this, as discussion has been closed. So I cannot take any questions from the floor at this time. Jimmy and Larry, are the rules reflective now of what you were seeking?
I believe so.
The only thing I would state is that currently the rules say that that the non-binding roll call follows discussion. Both of those, my intent, and maybe I'm not communicating that properly, is that we still continue to have those two binding roll calls after the discussion, unless we reach a 50% majority with the first non-binding roll call prior to discussion. So all that to say, if we reach a 50% majority before discussion, then we move forward with that candidate. If we don't reach 50%, then we go to discussion and having the two non-binding roll calls after that discussion.
Thank you. I believe reading it on my end, I believe it's now reflective, as it says that we take a non-binding poll, and then if someone receives 50%, it closes. At which point, I believe Sachin is making a couple of tweaks. Hold on one second. I want the displayed rules to be reflective of what we're voting on. Ms. Davis, I believe you have a point of information.
Thank you. So am I correct in reading this that if a member were to want the discussion before any non-binding vote, they should vote no on this measure before us, on the proposal before us?
Correct. My understanding, and Mr. Glenn, please jump in if I get your amendment incorrect, but I believe the purpose of this amendment is to allow us to do a non-binding poll to see if we have already hit a majority threshold, at which point a nominee would be selected before we enter into discussion.
That is correct, yes.
Mr. Glenner, is this now reflective?
It is. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, the motion, I'm sorry, Mr. Estevez, do you have a point of information on the motion that we were about to vote on?
Yes, I'd like to make sure that I understand this. So if we want discussion on candidates, assuming that assuming that someone could potentially reach 50+1, then they should vote no on this motion.
Correct. If this motion passes and someone hits 50% plus one, then there would be no discussion on any of the candidates. We would then move to accept the nomination.
Thank you.
All right. From here, I would like to clarify again, whenever it comes time to vote, you are voting to accept the rules of consideration that are on your screen as amended by Jimmy Glenn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Please remute yourself if you've already voted. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
No.
Nay.
No.
Nay.
I do not think that we reached consensus either way on this vote. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, council, but I would like to go ahead and proceed to a roll call vote. Or does that need to be motioned?
Make a motion for a roll call vote.
Thank
Second.
you. I would like to move for a roll call vote.
Second.
And that was Jason, correct?
Well, I was the second. I don't know who moved.
I'll log myself. All right, we're going to go through a roll call vote. Again, signify by saying aye when I call your name. If you would like to accept the rules of consideration as amended. Nikki Williams.
Abstain.
Ted Terry.
Abstain.
Ted Terry.
Abstain.
Sarah Todd.
No.
Adrian White.
Nay.
B. Wynn.
No.
I vote yes. Jason Estevez.
No.
Calvin Smyre. Calvin Smyre.
You're next.
Wendy Davis.
No.
Richard Ray.
No.
Sally Rosser.
No.
Pamela Stevenson. Pamela Stevenson.
You vote no.
Sheik Rahman.
Yes.
At times.
Dan Halpern.
Call him back.
No.
Lisa Ring.
No.
Bobby Fuse.
Yes.
Jimmy Glenn.
Yes.
Ryan Barrett.
No.
TJ Copeland.
No.
Ben Myers.
No.
Cheryl Williams. Cheryl Williams.
No.
Thank you. Vanika Miller.
No.
June Chris.
Yes.
Norman Garrett.
No.
Sherry Giordino.
Yes.
Chris Johnson.
Yes.
Maisha Good.
No.
Tim Shiflett.
No.
Diane Evans.
No. No.
Thank you. Carlotta Harrell. Carlotta Harrell.
I'm not really sure what the motion is saying, so, no.
Thank you. Rachel Polly.
No.
Hattie Dorsey. James Beverly.
No.
I'm sorry, did you say no?
Correct, no.
Thank you, sir. Gloria Butler? Gloria Butler?
Yes.
Thank you. Scout Smith?
Abstain.
Thank you.
Let's go.
Dominic Perkins?
Yeah, I'm going to abstain too.
Thank you. Larry Schlesinger?
Yes.
David Worley?
No.
Sandra Williams? Sandra Williams? Hold on one second, guys. If you could, please, if you're not actively voting, please, or your line is muted. Thank you. James Williams?
No.
Mary Lou Waymer?
Yes.
Thank you. Congressman Bishop? Congressman Bishop? Congressman Johnson?
No.
Thank you. Congressman Scott? Congressman Scott? And Congresswoman McBath? Congresswoman McBath. All right, give me a moment to count votes.
Justin, can I change my vote to yes, please?
And I'm sorry, who is that speaking?
Carlotta.
Thank you. That results in 24 no votes with 39 votes received. Therefore, the motion does fail. Council, if you can please advise, so does the motion, or I'm sorry, do the rules of consideration revert back to their original state to be reconsidered, or do we just proceed, or what happens from here?
The amendment was accepted, the motion failed, and so there is no motion on the floor.
Can I make a motion?
Someone else can propose, in just one moment, anyone else can propose rules of consideration. My only interest in this is making sure that we complete the process in a timely manner, just so everyone understands the logistics. After we have selected a nominee, I have to prepare a certification of nomination, which has to be executed by Secretary Holzenbach and the chair, and has to be notarized. And we have to get that to the Secretary of State's office. So it would be, I would be very concerned if we do not have a nominee by 3 o'clock, that we might not be able to satisfy the statutory deadline. So my only request is that we aim to close by 3.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
I believe before we proceed, Council, can you stop sharing your screen so that way I can see speakers queued up? And I would also ask if you had your hand raised from our previous motion, if you could go ahead and lower that. I'm using that to signify people that want to move from the floor. I see Congressman Johnson's and Jason Estevez's hand raised on Zoom. If either of you are trying to speak or make a motion, I would recognize either of you. Otherwise, I'd like to proceed.
Mr. Chair, this is Daniel Halpern. Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Out of time, is there any proxy process? I had a meeting scheduled at 2 o'clock. It's been on the books for about 8 weeks of people coming in from out of town. That is extraordinarily important to my business, which due to COVID-19 is not doing so well. So what is the proxy process for this? Can I sign it to somebody?
Unfortunately, and Council can correct me if I'm mistaken, but there is a specific prohibition against proxy voting in the DPG charter and bylaws.
That's correct.
Okay, I'll try and do 2 meetings at once. Thank you.
Can I make a motion?
Ms. Harrell, you're right.
Mr. Chairman, when will I be recognized?
I'm sorry, was your hand wanting to be recognized from the floor or on the previous motion?
My hand was wanting to be recognized prior to the previous motion. The motion was interposed, which cut off my ability to make my comment. And then
Yes,
I
sir. Then
voted no.
You are
against
recognized, and
it.
I apologize for the delay.
All right, thank you. I would just like to caution everyone that the public is watching what we do, and the Democratic Party of Georgia should be open with its process. And all of those who are stakeholders in the process should feel that their views have been heard. And so that's why I support the ability of everyone on this call who wants to express an opinion to be able to do so. And I would ask counsel, because the reason for wanting to go into executive session was to discuss personnel matters. I would like for to hear what a personnel matter, I mean, what is the definition of a personnel matter? And then I can perhaps understand better about why the original plan was to go into executive session.
So thank you, Congressman Johnson. I'm not sure that describing it as a personnel matter is accurate. We were considering an applicant for a position, and those such consideration can occur in executive session, and there were individuals who wanted to do so, and that motion failed. And so there's no reason other than that.
So but if we had gone into executive session, it would have given us an opportunity to share among ourselves what our pros and cons were of each particular candidate. And none of that would hit the public arena and thus hurting anyone. And I think that may have been the reason for wanting to go into executive session, not to necessarily to make a decision during executive session, but to hear a free exchange of information so that all of the members of the committee could make a informed decision once we went back into the general meeting with everyone being able to view it. Am I correct about that?
That's my understanding, Congressman, and certainly at any point, had we been in executive session, someone could have moved to leave executive session. That said, that motion was made and failed earlier.
Well, thank you. So now we're left with discussing perhaps sensitive issues in a public forum, and I think that's where we are. And I support being able to have dialogue, even if it has to be in a public setting on a quote personnel issue.
Thank you.
With that, I will yield back.
Thank you, Congressman. The next hand that was raised, it was confirmed, was before the motion. I'd like to recognize next Jason Estevez.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. And I think given where we are, this is historic. And I agree with Congressman Johnson that we need to be as transparent and open to the public as possible. I do think it's incredibly important that people have the opportunity to speak on the executive committee before a vote be taken. I am very sensitive to the time that we have to formalize this formalize our nomination. So what I recommend is that we amend or we change the rules of consideration to allow for debate, or allow for discussion, allow people the option to speak up to a maximum of, let's say, 3 people in favor, 3 people against any one candidate. And we give everyone the opportunity to say something prior to voting. And in order to speed up voting, potentially proposing something like ranked choice voting, where we would rank our choices immediately, save everyone a lot of time, and we proceed that way. So that that we have the opportunity to talk about it. If someone wants to say something, the public hears that, and then we move forward with voting, and that voting be as efficient as possible in consideration of time, of course.
Thank you. I would like to recognize Carlotta Harrell.
Due to second time, I just think we need to move forward.
Thank you. I would like to recognize Rachel Pauley.
I believe we all have our strong opinions. I think in an effort to try and be as transparent as possible, we don't need executive committee members speaking for or against candidates. I do believe we need to give executive committee members the chance to ask questions of these candidates, and that should be where our time is spent before we vote. I do believe that those questions should be made public and answered publicly and not in executive session.
Thank you. Ms. Davis, I recognize yourself.
But first, a point of information. Is there a motion on the floor?
No, we are in an open discussion.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we allow each executive committee member to speak for up to 90 seconds. And I don't mean like for or against somebody, just share what you want to say. If you want to say for or against somebody, say it, but give everybody 90 seconds to say what's on their mind and then move forward.
There's been a motion from Ms. Davis to cap discussion from each individual executive committee member at 90 seconds total each. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Second.
I have Ben Myers seconding. Is there discussion on this motion?
This is Daniel Halpern. I'd like to amend it to 60 seconds.
Ms. Davis, would you accept that amendment?
Happy to.
And I have Mr. Myers as the seconder. Would you also accept that amendment to 60 seconds?
I'm sorry, I need to withdraw my second. I hit the button at the wrong time. Could you entertain a motion for someone else to second this, please?
I'll second.
I'll
All right, so that changes the second to Chris Johnson. Christopher Johnson, do you accept the amendment to 60 seconds as the cap instead of 90?
Yes, sir, Chairman.
If really back, thank you, staff. Is there further discussion on the motion?
I have a friendly amendment. I have a friendly amendment to the amended amendment.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
That is to add that after the 60 seconds of discussion by each member, should they decide to say anything, that there'll be a binding, or that there'll be a non-binding poll taken at that time to determine support for any particular candidate.
Ms. Davis, do you accept that friendly amendment?
I'm happy to accept that amendment and maybe clarify, can we all put our non-binding vote in the chat to make it a faster than the roll call?
To ensure that we keep proper records for the vote on the back end, I would feel more comfortable as the recording secretary of doing a roll call.
Well, then everybody be quick, please.
And Christopher Johnson, do you accept that amendment to add the non-binding poll after 60 seconds?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is there further discussion?
Yes, Justin, this is Sir. I'd like to suggest that we do a ranked choice non-binding and move the top two vote getters to a vote.
And I second that.
That motion would be out of order unless Ms. Davis wants to offer an amendment to her motion.
I would like the vice chair to tell me how quickly she can explain what ranked choice voting is, so we are facing a ticking clock.
Yeah, I understand that we're under a tight time frame, but I do also want to recognize the gravity and the responsibility in which we're faced today. And a ranked choice voting system would simply we rank the 5 candidates from 1 to 5, stating our preferences, and we would take the top 2 candidates with the most votes and then go to a full body vote, a non-binding one.
Ms. Johnson, or I'm sorry, Ms. Davis, is there a way that you would like to amend your motion, or would you like to keep your motion on the floor unedited?
I'm happy to, if I'm hearing correctly, accept an amendment to allow the non-binding vote to include ranked choice option.
So I have a question.
Council?
I just want to make sure that we have the capability to tally ranked choice voting in a timely manner, and that's the question.
The only way, as the recording secretary, I have a way of doing that is to ask people for them to rank all 5 candidates from 1 to 5. We don't have any sort of voting system retained for this, as we were going to be doing a majority vote for the nomination. I don't have any sort of automated system to allow for that. I don't know if I am able to accommodate that request. Council, I don't know if you have advice for this.
If I might intervene, I would say that we're running up against a 4:30 deadline, that this information needs to be at the Secretary of State's office. And if we don't have the capability of conducting a ranked choice vote, I think we should, in the interest of efficiency, stick with a majority vote. And if there's a need to go to a second round, we can always do that. And so I would ask the maker of the friendly amendment whether or not she would consider withdrawing it.
I will consider declining the amendment about ranked choice voting, not because I don't enjoy ranked choice voting, but because it's not practical in our time frame.
Staff, if we can go through and mute everybody really quick. Thank you. So that would mean that friendly amendment fails. Do we have further debate on this motion? I have lost track of hands raised, so if you would like to have discussion on this motion, please go ahead and speak.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Fuse, you're recognized.
I only want to point out that it seems to me, and I apologize if I'm wrong, that you would be now changing the method that you announced for the election of the nominee. I suggest that we stick to the announced method and procedure and go ahead with it as soon as possible.
Yes, sir. The friendly amendment to move to ranked choice voting was not accepted, so it is not being considered.
I stand corrected, and I thank you.
Is there further discussion?
I'd like to propose an amendment that each candidate get a certain number of seconds, maybe 15 seconds, once all executive committee members have said their piece, to answer any questions that may have been asked during the executive committee members' speech.
So before I kick that to Ms. Davis, who made the motion, I am concerned that we will very quickly run out of time, since there is a notary process that has to occur and we have to get this to the Secretary of State's office. I would try not to do it at 4:29.
I do not accept that amendment to my motion.
Is there
I
further
move to close debate?
There's been a motion to close debate. I'm sorry, who made that?
Jason.
And who seconded?
I second that.
Thank you, Scout. All right, the motion to close debate, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? Thank you. All right, the motion on the floor that now needs to be voted on, correct me, Ms. Davis, if I misread this, is to allow for each state committee member to speak for up to 60 seconds, after which time has concluded, there will be a non-binding poll to see if a candidate has majority. Is that correct, Ms. Davis?
That is correct.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions on the motion?
I thought we were going to do the non-binding vote first.
No, sir. The non-binding vote would go after the 60 seconds of speaking time for state or executive committee members. All right, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. If you are opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? I noted 2, or I'm sorry, I noted 1. Therefore, the motion passes in the opinion of the chair, the acting chair, excuse me. The motion that was approved is now going to allow for up to 60 seconds for each state committee member to speak, after which time, if anyone yields, then their time is not pooled. Then once all speaking is exhausted, we will take a non-binding poll of the executive committee to see if any of the 5 candidates has reached a majority. At this time, staff, is there a way that we can manually lower everyone's hands? I'm going to try my absolute best to get this in order. If you would like to utilize your 60 seconds of speaking time, I will be keeping time, and I will cut you off whenever you hit your time, but go ahead and please raise your hand on Zoom if you would like to speak. I believe this orders people in order in which they raise their hand. All right, Jimmy Glenn, we will start with yourself. If you would like to go ahead and speak.
Yes. I'm just going to be very quick. Hearing all of the candidates speak, we honestly cannot go wrong with any of these choices. I'm not advocating for one or the other. I just, I want it to be on the record that whoever we choose, I have no doubt will represent the 5th district in the best way possible. I'm happy and thankful for all 132 people who put their applications in and the 5 candidates that were selected by the nominating committee. And I look forward to seeing what happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'd recognize Jason Estevez.
I echo Jimmy's comments and think we cannot go wrong here and appreciate the nominating committee. I do want to emphasize that the state party, our legislators at the Capitol, advocate for changing this law that governs this process. I think we can all agree that this put the party in a tough bind for a very important decision that needed to be made. And as the party that champions voting rights and the opportunity to exercise our rights, we should be advocating for a change to this law moving forward.
You were muted, Justin.
Thank you. I next recognize Adrienne White.
Good afternoon, everybody. I share with everybody the gravity of this moment and give all honor to Congressman John Lewis and understand that the person that will take this role you can't even fill the shoes. It's just, we are entering a new phase in leadership for the Congressional 5th District. And I just want to raise up all of the voters of the Congressional 5th District. We understand that this feels awkward, and as to Jason's point, we want to change the law to return the power to the voters in the moment like this. And I just want to share that we, as an executive committee, greatly appreciate the public's trust in our choice to decide who goes forth to carry the leadership for the Congressional 5th District. So just thank you.
Thank you. I'll next recognize B. Nguyen.
Thank you, Justin. I just want to echo some of the sentiments that were already expressed, that this is not the ideal process, not the process by which any of us would have wanted, and that our work is to be continued at the state level to ensure not only this policy is changed, but that we change and recognize all voting policies that take the power out of the hands of the public. And I also want to acknowledge and recognize that all of us are doing this for the first time, and that does require discussion and diligence. And I thank everybody for their input and for adapting to a situation that none of us could have anticipated. I feel confident in all 5 of the people who are up for nomination. I believe that this is a reflection of the strength of our Democratic Party of Georgia, and it is exciting to see the diversity of names and the diversity of backgrounds. And I believe that whoever is elected to the 5th will serve us well. And so I just want to thank the public for entrusting us with this vote, but as well as all the members who have been part of this process. It's been a very fast timeline. And it's been hard for every person on here. So thank you.
Time. Mary Lou Waymer.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you to our executive committee members and particularly to the nominating committee. It is very true that we have a list of 5 nominees who are exceptionally qualified. The breadth and the width of our Democratic Party candidates is really commendable and exciting. I'm supporting a good woman. She's ready, she's capable, she's distinguished. She will make us proud. Her name is Nikema Williams. Thank you, committee.
Thank you. Christopher Johnson. Mr. Johnson, I believe you're muted.
I echo the sentiments of all in appreciation of the nominating committee and to all these fine candidates. I do appreciate the fact that we have to make this process among ourselves rather than leaving it in the hands of the Republicans to do this. But I also want to add that we do have some good candidates, and I feel proud to have the leadership to continue to move forward to advance on behalf of the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fuse.
Great, good afternoon to everyone. All due respect to C.T. Vivian and John Lewis, and thank God for their relationship to each of us. I too wish to thank the nominating committee, who has gone through a large number of applicants for this position to bring us to this point today. I would like to encourage the executive committee to remember that the presidential administration changes in January, and we need to hit the ground running with qualified, experienced person in this position. We do not need to wait another 2 years to have an election for a permanent congressman, because we'll lose 2 years of seniority. And I would encourage this committee to consider and to vote for Ms. Nikema Williams as the Democratic nominee for the 5th Congressional District of Georgia. I thank you for this opportunity to participate.
Thank you, Mr. Fuse. Believe Congressman Johnson.
Yes, thank you. When a nominee for the United States House of Representatives dies between the primary and the general election, Georgia law requires or leaves the party of the deceased nominee with 2 choices. One, it can leave the nomination blank or vacant, or 2, it can select the nominee so long as it gets that nominee to the Secretary of State within the next business day after the death or vacancy that is left. And so that left the Democratic Party of Georgia scrambling. Fortunately, it had the weekend since John Lewis died on Friday. The next business day is today. If he had died 24 hours earlier, then the next business day would have been Friday at 4:30. Almost impossible to do. That would have left the seat vacant. And then the only person running in November would be the Republican. And so we just simply could not leave that seat vacant. I want to thank the Democratic Party for taking quick action and doing what you have done to get us to this point. And now we're poised to select our nominee for November. And we have great candidates, all of them. I'm wishing them the best of success. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. TJ Copeland.
So I'll just be really quick. I've been very fortunate to work with all the nominees. They are all really great. And as the chair of the 5th Congressional District, I just want to say I look forward to working with whoever moves forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Gloria Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to express my thanks to the entire executive committee, the nominating committee, and a special thank you to my Congressman Johnson for making that explanation crystal clear as to what we would have had if we hadn't gone through this process. And we know that this process is flawed and it needs extra work. And so when we get back in session, I'm sure we can take a look at that and make a huge difference. I do have a nominee, but I'll wait. My nominee know who she is. So I will thank you all for taking your time on today. We've spent a lot of time together today, which I like, but it's for something that really needs our attention. And I'm sure that all of us will be happy with whatever nominee comes out of this process. So thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I see no other hands raised. I would like to give a couple of minutes to see if any additional state committee members. Ms. Davis.
Apologies, I feel kind of goofy that I couldn't find the raised hand button. I'd like to echo the congressman's words about our hands being tied. We cannot leave this seat without a Democratic nominee. Our role as a party is to make sure that there is a fair process for our nominees to be selected. None of us wish this was the process, but this is the process we have. The people of the 5th District will vote in November at what we hope will be an enormous turnout for this election. And they'll have a chance to validate our nominee or pick the Republican. The governor also has an opportunity to call a special election. I encourage our nominee to seek that seat in the special election. And all those who want to say that the people aren't getting their choice, put your candidate in the special election. I feel very confident that our nominee, whoever of these 5 very talented people, will win that special election also. The people need to vote, but it's our job as party leaders to make sure that we have a nominee. When I look for a nominee, I look for all kinds of characteristics, and there's only one of these 5 who checks every box. My apologies, but time. Me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Polly.
Hey everyone, I want to say first thank you to Congressman Johnson for his explanation. I think it's crucial that we share, especially because we are public right now, exactly what is going on and why. And I'd like to, excuse me, share concern that so much discussion was stifled on this call. I understand we're under time constraints, but with each of these incredible, phenomenal candidates, we are leaving positions behind that must be filled. We need to have strategic discussions about building the bench and what the plans of each candidate are when they are elected or appointed to this position. So I'm incredibly disappointed that we were not able to have those discussions. And I hope that all of you will consider that because this is public, we have a duty to share what the inner workings of our party are with the public. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Calvin Smyre.
Hi there, everyone. This is Calvin Smyre, Chairman Emeritus of the party. And I just wanted to say...
Hold up.
How proud I am.
Senator Rahman, thank you.
How proud I am of us today and being in this open process. And I would be remiss if I didn't say a word about C.T. Vivian and John Lewis, and we both mourn both of their untimely deaths, and we all have a heavy heart today in selecting a nominee to fill the the vacancy on the ballot for Congressman Lewis is for the 5th Congressional District. And I share Congressman Johnson has said and all of the others on this call. And it'd be worthy to say, those of us who are elected, that while we've had an open process today and under the auspice of the law, the Georgia law, we need to, if this had happened on a midday, we would have to done this over 24 hours. And, you know, thank goodness that it was a weekend and then we had a little time. But this had happened during a weekday, would have been within the next business day. So that needs to be reviewed and looked at in light of where we are today. And but I'm proud of our membership today, the Executive Committee, and how we have conducted ourselves accordingly. And I just want to say that to everyone. Thank everyone on this call.
Thank you, sir. David Worley.
I want to echo what everyone said about the process. I want to compliment the staff and the officers, and also especially the general counsel for their hard work over the weekend. I'm going to take my time to talk about the candidate that I'm going to support, and that's Nikema Williams. I've had an opportunity to get to know her in her years as vice chair and chair of the party, and I think she presents the best combination of activism, legislative experience, and representation already of a large part of the 5th District, and I'm supporting her wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, is there anyone else wishing to speak that has not spoken? I see no more hands and I see no more chat. At this point, we would move, based off of the motion that was accepted, to a non-binding poll. For this poll, again, all votes must be a matter of public record, how each individual member votes. So we will be conducting this via a roll call vote. When it is time for you to vote, please audibly say out loud your choice between the candidates, and this is by last name alphabetical: Park Cannon, Andre Dickens, Robert Franklin, Nikema Williams, or James Major Woodall. At the end of the roll call vote, we will confirm if any candidate has hit the threshold of 50% plus one of executive committee members that vote. If there is no candidate that has reached that threshold, there will be well, I guess there is no actual rule to dictate our next steps if no candidate hits 50%. At this time, are there any questions before we commence the process on the process itself? Adrian, I believe you have a question.
Yes. Can you confirm for us and the audience exactly what a non-binding vote means? And even if somebody gets 50% plus one or the majority, if there's an opportunity for a binding vote?
Yes, there is. So by non-binding, and council, please hop in if I misspeak on this explanation, but a non-binding would allow members of the executive committee to change their vote between each individual polling. And then Adrian, I apologize, but what was the second part of your question?
In the event, even in the event that somebody gets 50% or more of the non-binding vote, is there an opportunity or procedure requirement for a official binding vote?
Not at this time. There has been no motion to dictate those principles or that process. And I do apologize. It looks like I did miss Senator Rahman wanted to speak for 60 seconds.
Thank you. I just want to thank all the 131 people applied for this position. I just want to take a moment, thank those people who did not make it to the 5, but that's the only thing I would want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And my apologies again for missing you in the chat. Is there anyone else that has questions on the process of voting?
Justin, I was just going to offer a clarification on Adrian's question. Certainly, in order for us to select a nominee, we will have to have a binding motion, but the current motion on the floor is to take a non-binding poll of the executive committee, and that there will have to be a subsequent vote on a motion to select the nominee, whoever that is.
Thank you. Any further questions before we begin to vote? Seeing none. So again, please audibly say out loud your choice between the 5 named candidates. Let me click back over to my spreadsheet. Nikema Williams, how do you vote?
Abstain.
Abstain. Ted Terry?
I vote for Nikema Williams.
Sarah Todd?
Nikema Williams.
Adrian White?
Nikema Williams.
Dee Wynn?
Nikema Williams.
I vote for Nikema Williams. Jason Estevez?
Nikema Williams.
Calvin Smyre?
Nikema Williams.
Wendy Davis?
Nikema Williams.
Richard Ray?
Nikema Williams.
Sally Rosser?
Nikema Williams.
Pamela Stevenson? Pamela Stevenson? Sheik Rahman?
Nikema Williams.
Dan Halpern? Dan Halpern? Lisa Ring?
Park Cannon.
Thank you. Bobby Fuse?
Nikema Williams.
Thank you. Jimmy Glenn?
Nikema Williams.
Ryan Barrett?
Nikema Williams.
Thank you. TJ Copeland?
Nikema Williams.
Ben Myers?
Nikema Williams.
Cheryl Williams?
Nikema Williams.
Fanika Miller?
Sorry, Nikema Williams.
Thank you. June Chris?
Nikema Williams.
Norman Garrett?
Nikema Williams.
Sherry Giardino?
Nikema Williams.
I'm sorry, the first part of your answer was cut off. Nikema Williams, correct? Yes. Thank you. Chris Johnson?
Nikema Williams.
Maisha Good?
Nikema Williams.
Tim Shiflett?
Nikema Williams.
Thank you. Diane Evans? Diane Evans? Carlotta Harrell?
Nikema Williams.
Thank you. Rachel Polly?
James Major Woodall.
Thank you. Hattie Dorsey, I see her vote in chat is Nikema. She's having audio issues. James Beverly?
Park Cannon.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Beverly, Park Cannon?
Correct.
Thank you. Gloria Butler?
Nikema Williams.
Scout Smith?
Nikema Williams.
Dominic Perkins?
Nikema Williams.
Larry Schlesinger?
Nikema Williams.
David Worley?
Nikema Williams.
Sandra Williams?
Nikema Williams.
James Williams?
Nikema Williams.
Mary Lou Waymer?
Nikema Williams.
Congressman Bishop?
Franklin.
Congressman Bishop? Might have been muted. Congressman Bishop, last call. Congressman Johnson?
Nikema Williams.
Thank you. Congressman Scott? Congressman Scott? Congresswoman McBath?
Nikema Williams.
Thank you. I'm checking to see if I missed any votes in chat. I did not. Let me count the votes.
Mr. Chair, this is Daniel Halpern. Obviously, I'm in a meeting and I didn't make my. Is this the non-binding straw poll?
Yes, sir. And if you would like to cast a vote, I'm in the middle of tallying.
And this will then be followed up by an actual roll call of a real vote, or if this is over 50%, does this decide the nominee?
If this results in a candidate receiving 50% plus one, I would then entertain a motion to accept the nominee.
Nikema Williams.
Thank you. All right, let me count the votes, please. I received 41 total votes, which would require a candidate to receive 22 total votes. And I reflect that Nikema Williams received 37 votes, which does satisfy the majority threshold for a non-binding vote. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion to accept the nomination of Nikema Williams to CD5.
One point before you do that, Justin.
Yes, sir.
Just to make sure we are within all four corners of Georgia law, I would suggest that the motion be to nominate Nikema Williams as our nominee for the 5th Congressional District, contingent upon her withdrawing as the candidate for Senate District 39.
I make a motion.
So for minutes purposes, council, do you have that, that you can share that specific language?
I can type it and share it.
Thank you.
Justin, can I make the nomination?
Would you like to make that motion, Ms. Harrell?
Yes.
Thank
I'd
you.
like to make
I'd like to second.
I did not see who seconded. Sorry, guys.
Second from Rachel Polly.
All right. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Please mute yourself after voting. All those against, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries. In light of time, this is normally there is some soaring rhetoric, but we have to get this done. I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? None. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those against? Any abstentions? The motion to adjourn carries. Thank you, everybody.